Hey everybody, welcome back to another film of the week. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. I'm just looking to head out pretty soon here, and I actually am going to be recording two videos back to back just because I was meaning to record one of these videos, or was, looking to record one of these videos earlier, but I just didn't get around to doing it. So now I'm just going to do both back to back before I head out. And we're back with another film of the week. And for this film of the week, I was actually going to do a film that actually fits my Blind Tuesdays thing. So I'm actually going to be saving that for Blind Tuesdays. So you'll just have to stay tuned for Blind Tuesdays to see what that film is. Obviously, it'll be something from the '60s, but yeah. So I'm pushing that to Blind Tuesdays. So kind of left me with a hole for this week and what I can talk about. And thought about a few films here and there that I could talk about, but nothing really spoke to me except this film because I did talk about it when it came out, and I've talked about it ad nauseum on this channel when I can get a chance to really talk about it, but I've never really dedicated a formal video to it. I've discussed it when I was a lot younger, but I didn't wasn't able to articulate my thoughts in a much more cohesive and more well constructed manner. So so I figured now as years have gone on and actually sitting with the film for many years, I figured to talk about a sequel to, in my opinion, one of the greatest films of all time, that being the original Blade Runner, which we have discussed on this channel, and discuss its follow up, that being Blade Runner 2049, which was released in 2017, directed by Denis Villeneuve, who was a very notable filmmaker. At that point, was a very notable filmmaker. Did films such as Sicario, Prisoners, most recently, by that time, Arrival, and now he's taken up the Blade Runner series with the sequel. And this has been in development for a while, and Ridley Scott initially, of course, was going to direct the film, amongst backs and forths with Harrison Ford about just the whole ending, which we've discussed also is not as ambiguous as people like to make it out to be. It's just not. Um, but eventually, we got to Denis Villeneuve. He got on board with the project, and here we are with Blade Runner 2049, as it takes place 30 years after the original film, and we're following an officer named K, who we find out very early in the film is a replicant. And he's a Blade Runner. He's working for the LAPD, and while visiting Dave Bautista's character, who is also a replicant, he discovers something rather interesting while he is out and about, because his whole profession is that of retiring older models. So he retires, Dave Bautista's character, and he discovers something quite natural, we'll say, in this very technological environment, in this very technological future, and also is remembering things, potentially remembering things. Memories are popping up, and he starts to question his whole identity. And this leads him on a journey of just of of self and learning about his what he could be, and ultimately what he can be, um, in this world. And his whole morality is being tested and being formed. And eventually, he meets up with Harrison Ford's character, Rick Deckard, and amidst all this, Jared Leto's character, Wallace, I believe is his name, who is now running the Tyrell Corporation, the corporation that was in the original film. Uh, he is also in the mix of Kay's journey. As Kay is uncovering things, Jared Leto becomes intrigued, and he is also in pursuit of whatever he is looking for. And that's basically the film without getting much into spoilers, because I don't want to really give much away about the film. But um, But in talking about 2049, my entryway into Blade Runner, oddly enough, was with 2049. I wasn't preview to the original film prior to watching 2049, but I do remember quite a bit of my theatrical experience with 2049. It was just uh, a funny word to use, but it was like quite orgasmic. It was a just a beautiful, beautiful experience, um, and I think it's just a proper theatrical experience, if you ask me. Um, because I mean, on a technical front with 2049, it is just just regal, just beautiful in so many aspects. I mean, for obviously with what Roger Deakins is bringing in terms of its visual style, in terms of its cinematography, it is just in some cases just jaw dropping how beautiful the film looks, especially with how he plays with tints, specifically the orange tints. I think are just wonderful. Um, the score by Hans Zimmer, as I forget the other composer involved, but the score is just like completely fits with Denis Villeneuve's sensibilities, but also that of the Blade Runner world. Just tense but intriguing, just melancholy. You know, it has all of those sort of vibes at play, and in terms of environment, it has all those vibes as well. But in terms of comparison, you know, when you compare the two with 2049 and Blade Runner, 2049 I think has more of a grounded sense than Blade Runner does, where the original Blade Runner, there's a really floaty quality to the film and an overall thematic level by how it's approaching its themes. It chooses to take more of a floaty like approach, kind of examining the ideas, um, and taking priority of the ideas, versus in 2049 where we are going through similar themes and similar ideas, but it's more in the confine of a study of character and how it impacts a character on a psychological level and how it impacts them in a moral sense. Um, and I find that to be very intriguing. And of course, the perspectives are also different now, with it being through the eyes of a replicant and about switching that that you know, it's kind of like a mirror effect about the whole idea of being human, what it means to be human, seeing it through the eyes of a replicant, and just by the overall manner of how it's delivered, there's more of a grounded sense, and um, you know, in a different approach and wakefulness compared to the original film. Like I said, the original film, there's a floaty quality to it, more of a um, there is like more of a mysterious, you know, guidance, you know, that goes with the original. With the 2049, there is more of a firm hand at play, and I guess in whatever sensibility you find more flattering, you may think 2049 is better than the original. Um, and 2049 definitely does have strengths that outweigh that of the original. Like I said, just some of the approach to the ideas, the concepts of what it means to be human, some of that grounded approach, that some of that grounded sensibility, I think does outweigh the original in some aspects, because I think it gives more of an informative side that the original doesn't, because the original, in how it utilizes these ideas, it pretty much just uses Harrison Ford's character and the other characters that inhabit that film as tools, or just rather examples, to the thematic ideas on its that the film possesses on its mind. Whereas in 2049, it is using the characters and using and examining the characters and their reactions and the impact of information, you know, how it impacts them on a psychological level, and how it ultimately informs them as characters. You know, it's different. You know, there's different sensibilities at play, and I think the 2049 to a certain extent has the edge on that. But the original, I think, just in general concept and just by overall conception, I think is just out. It's just better than what 2049 has to offer. But 2049 just on its own, stacking it up to other modern films, I mean, it's just unparalleled in my opinion because of just what it is delivering. Firstly, in performances, I think Ryan Gosling is just really on his A game here. You know, it does seem rather simple as to what he has to do in performance. I mean, he's pretty much just having to have just a blank expression on his face throughout the entire film. But a lot to do with the subtlety within that absence, with not having much to say on his face. It's he's still able to give a lot. There's still a lot in his performance in an emotional sense. You understand what Kay is feeling throughout the film. It's not the case of where you just feel incredibly distant the entire time and you're just wondering what's on his mind. You absolutely know what's happening on his mind without that expression. It's just that little subtle points, the little details that are represented within that performance, that I think really give that character more dimensions, um, and and gives him more of a humane quality, while also at the same time reminding us that of him being a replicant. So it's a very balanced performance, and I think that to be very, 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 very just great. I think that it helps a lot in giving us a lot of information about that character. And same with Harrison Ford. I think Harrison Ford does just a great job here. It's just, with Harrison Ford, you get like Two Face with him. Sometimes he's fully committed, and other times he's just not really caring. And in this, you can tell that he really does care. He does care about the material, he cares about the story at play, and like especially in that bar scene when he's talking to Kay, and it comes off kind of like a father and son dynamic when you view it from the point of Kay's, view it from Kay's perspective. It's it's just like there's just something to what Ford is bringing to it that demonstrates passion. It's not this usual Ford where he's like, okay, sure, whatever. He looks like he gives a shit, and when he does give a shit, he is putting in good work. So, um, but the storytelling in this, I think, is just as strong as the original. I like that they go for a different perspective, and within that, it is fostering the same ideas, the same overall concepts about what it means to be human, about identity. It does play with those same ideas, but it chooses to take those ideas and represent them within a different perspective, and ultimately birth a different line of reasoning, a different line of of uh, of thinking compared to the original film. They operate on the same ideas, but they're utilizing them for very different reasons. With the original, it's like I said, this floaty like idea, this floaty plane domain, I must say, where it's you as the viewer just examining these ideas as they unfold. Whereas in the sequel, it is a much more centralized, perspective where you're viewing these ideas through the company and um, through the perspective of that of a replicant. So so it's more centralized than that of the original film, and it does bear more strengths to the original than compared to the original film as a result. But comparisons aside, I mean, it is just just very, very, I just awe-inspiring, and just for me personally, it was just a huge inspiration in understanding the art form of, I think for a lot of people at my age, I'm 23 right now, for a lot of people who went to see that film when it came out, it probably was very inspiring because of just like it just gave it just presented in the playfield of tentpoles and blockbuster, Hollywood filmmaking. It just gave a artistic side that is just rather absent in today's quality. There's just something of a majesty and of a royal nature to that film that something like Dune just does not offer in any sense of the imagination. It is it is very, very thoughtful. It is very passionate. Denis clearly does care about the original film. It's not a filmmaker who is just operating with their own craftsmanship. This is someone who also does care about the original, is wishing to honor the legacy of that original film, and while simultaneously wanting to do their own thing. And thankfully, that that direction that they go is is both honoring the original but also gaining a perspective that the original didn't have at the start. And it expands upon those ideas and births something of a new line of thinking and a new perspective that is quite informative, quite fascinating, visually just astounding. Then just of overall technicality, the VFX and just the practicality, everything like all that stuff is just brilliant. You have performances that are great. You have a story that is fascinating. You're never once bored, and this is almost like a 3 hour film. Um, it just keeps you engaged the entire time, and it's thought provoking. I love just the impact again to Kay's character. Like every time when Kay is impacted by information, I feel impacted by it. I liked the moment when Kay, without spoiling too much, I like when Kay there's a revelation at one point, and you see how Kay is is affected by that, and how it ultimately shapes his moral code, and what he ends up doing at the end. How he, ends up doing, in his eyes, the right thing. There's a gray area to the film that I absolutely love, and again, something that the original film doesn't bear. The original film doesn't have a gray area. It's very much so about its ideas and us, you know, examining just those ideas. With this, it has a grounded sense, as I said, but it's more to do with the fact that it's approaching it through the company of a character and how they take in that information and that gray area in that, and developing that moral code and developing their stance on things and gaining a perspective through that journey. You know, it's very, very fascinating. And it's just, I think, just very, very strong. And compared to what's out there right now, it is just really remarkable. Um, I can't say it's as good as the original, but damn, does it come close. Like, it is just really, really outstanding in terms of its overall just storytelling, in terms of a visual medium. I think performances are solid. I love the engagement that's there. It's just, just really, really solid in that regard. Um, there's just a lot of really great qualities to it, and I just remember just the entire time watching it, and still today when watching it, just completely awe-inspired, just soaking in of its beauty, not just on a visual medium, but on a narrative level as well. So it is terrific work, and it's crazy because it's not, in my opinion, Denis Villeneuve's best work. I would still give that to Prisoners, and in saying that this is just great, it tells you a lot about the craftsmanship and the quality that Denis Villeneuve brings to his filmmaking. It is just really, really telling. It's also really telling to also say that it's fell, let's say, as of late, because with the Dune films, I just haven't been that crazy about them. But it is a mark in like Hollywood filmmaking. I think that just these sensibilities are just unfortunately not as apparent. We've gotten kind of like that sort of mentality with the creator, where you can tell it was being made by someone and not by a studio. Um, but it's just rather thin in terms of just the quantity of those sort of films. It's just rather formulaic nowadays. This isn't. This is very distinct, and just by comparison alone, they're close. The original is still there for me, but this just comes close. So I love it. I absolutely love this film. There's so many great qualities to it, and I mean I can gush about it for a while, but I only have so much time until this video gets too long. But I absolutely love it, and I don't think you have to watch the original to understand 2049 on its own. It stands on its own, um, and and I'm glad that Ridley Scott didn't come and direct this, because seeing as where his filmmaking went after Blade Runner, and just generally his sensibilities, I'm glad that he did not get a chance to direct this. I'm glad that we got someone with fresh eyes, someone like Denis Villeneuve, because he absolutely understood Blade Runner more than I think Ridley Scott understands Blade Runner to some extent. So, so yeah. So I really, really enjoy it. I really love it. And I don't love it just as a fan of the original. As a piece of filmmaking, as a piece of cinema, it is just very, very strong. And the by just the sharpness and just by the again, there's such a royal nature to when you watch this film. There's a majesty to the filmmaking, and perhaps a lot to do by its aesthetics, by its production, by how it just, frankly, how it just looks. There's just something so regal about it, and um, and the narrative I think matches that ultimately for me. But I I just I adore it, and I know a lot of other people probably at my age adore this film as well because of how much of an impact it left on 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 me and other people. Like just on an artistic level, it just it just hit that nice spot, you know. Um, so and I'm wondering how it maybe affected people who watched the original Blade Runner as well, you know. But but yeah, remarkable film, and as a sequel, obviously just unbound. I mean, it is probably one of the best sequels out there. Uh, and again, with what Blade Runner means to me, that's saying quite a bit when you going into Blade Runner. So, or Blade Runner 2049. And it's unfortunate that we won't get a third film because this film didn't do too well at the box office. But also at the same breath, seeing as we are right now, I'm a little happy because it just makes 2049 even more special and just an experience that I have not forgotten either. It's just a wonderful theatrical experience. And by film, what it is, same sentiment, just wonderful. And I absolutely adore it. So so yeah, so those are my thoughts on Blade Runner 2049. I absolutely love it. I love this film. It just stands on its own, but also stands right beside that original film. It is not below it, it is not above it. It just stands right beside it. I think the original stands a little bit taller, but they are just neck and neck in terms of overall quality. But you guys, what are your thoughts on Blade Runner 2049? I know there's a TV series in development. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but you guys, what are your thoughts on Blade Runner, the original film, and 2049? If you guys have seen both films, your thoughts on that TV series that's coming out, and yeah. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna drink some water now because I'm getting a little lightheaded. But thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video.